All right, so this is finding angle measures using trigonometric ratios. So in the last lesson, we talked about finding side lengths when we were given a specific angle. And we wanted to find that x value given any other side length. But this time, we are given the side lengths. So if we know this is 18 and that is 5, and we can actually calculate what that angle is using a trigonometric ratio. So just remember your trigonometric ratios. Just start off with SOHCAHTOA. That's not going away. SOHCAHTOA. So just make sure you have those ratios remembered or memorized, and we're going to go ahead and find that. Now you will need a calculator for today. It is best to do this lesson in your notebook, and we're going to solve for missing angle measures using inverse trig ratios to be able to solve for it. So how to solve for missing angle measures, example 1. So when we're finding just the missing angle measures, we first have to set up the equation to go ahead and solve for that angle measure. So I'm going to put up here SOHCAHTOA because we are going to use the relationship based off of what's going on in the triangle. So x is our theta. That's the angle that everything is in respect to. Okay, we need to go ahead and identify different parts. So here's the hypotenuse. Okay, the next one is going to be our opposite. And if you want to label the third side, you can, you don't have to. When I'm looking at opposite and hypotenuse though, I know that this is going to end up being a sine relationship, so it's going to be so it's going to be sine. In this case, our angle theta is x. We don't know what that angle is. Then we're going to end up with opposite, which is 15 divided by 24. All right, now this is where it gets a little different than solving for side lengths because we don't have to multiply or divide by the denominator. What we really need to do is we need to get this sine to the other side. Okay, now what we would normally do, and I'm going to go ahead and bring up my regular problem here, is we're going to take the inverse of 5 and move it to the other side. Now the inverse of 5 is just to divide both sides by 5. But we're not going to divide both sides by sine in this case. The inverse of sine is what we need to multiply both sides by. So let me do that in another color here. So we're going to take the inverse of sine of both of these sides. And when I rewrite that, that would end up just being sine inverse of 15/24 equals, these would simplify out because that is the inverse of sine, and that would just equal the x value. All right, now this is where it gets a little tricky on this video because you're going to have to find on your calculator the inverse signs, and not all calculators are the same, and I get that. Try on your computer to go ahead and search for your calculator. All right, so you're going to go down to where you have the search key down on the lower left hand corner. I'm not sure what your calculator is going to look like on a Apple, but HP and Dell are going to look very similar. I'm going to clear out my calculator a little bit. This is what my calculator looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and snap that to the side so I can see both of them at the same time. I'm going to clear out everything that I have going on there. And what we're going to type in is, with my calculator, I have to type in the ratio first and then sine inverse. I do not like that, but that's how this calculator works. When you have a scientific calculator in the classroom, there are some buttons that you can press, but you have to go ahead and press second to be able to access those inverse sine, cosine, and tangent. We're going to essentially need to do the same thing here. So for this calculator, I have to click on the trigonometry buttons. Notice how there's sine, cosine, and tangent, which we used last lesson. If you press the second button, that means we're going to have a second set of buttons on our calculator. We have sine inverse, cosine inverse, and tangent inverse. Don't worry about cosecant down here, or cotangent inverse. You'll learn that later on in pre-calculus or trigonometry, because there's a whole class devoted to trigonometry. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with this problem as far as how to calculate it in the calculator. If you're on the computer and you have a calculator like mine, what I have to do first is I have to go ahead and put my my angle per se. In this case, it's the angle, the side ratios. So I have to go ahead and put that inside parentheses to begin with. 15 divided by 24, close parentheses, that gives me 0.625. Now I'm going to use that number, 0.625, when I'm using sine inverse. So now I'm going to click on the trigonometry. Second, because I do need that sine inverse, that -1, okay, and that's going to give me 38.68, so that's going to round up. Please make sure you pause the video and practice until you get 38.68, okay, because if you can't calculate it, you can't get the right answer overall. So please make sure you know how to use your calculator, whether it be on your smartphone, a calculator that you have at home, which I hope you're using, or the calculator on the computer. If you cannot find a calculator, you're on a computer right now, so go to Google and see if you can find a scientific calculator there. There are free ones online, I bet you. And if not, you can troubleshoot with Mr. Bull or Miss Young, and they can definitely help you out, but do not sit there and say you don't have a calculator. All right, so let's go ahead and move on and take a look at, make that larger, the next example. We'll do this one together, and then I will ask that you do the remaining 4 examples on your own, and then I'll show you the answer on that one. So first step, always label your triangle. So we're going to have, and then we can also start off with, did that wrong. So, tella. So start off with that relationship first. Identify the different parts of your triangle. So this is going to end up being opposite. That's your hypotenuse. There is your angle. If this side is opposite, and this would be the adjacent. Okay, so I need a relationship that has hypotenuse and adjacent. So adjacent and hypotenuse are going to come up on cosine. So that's cosine x equals adjacent, which is 8 divided by 11, divided by your hypotenuse. Now, because we're solving for an angle measure, you are going to have to use the inverse cosine, and we're going to jump straight to that step. You're multiplying both sides by inverse cosine, so we're going to end up with the inverse cosine of 8/11. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what that becomes on the calculator. I'm going to clear out. Okay, the first thing that I need is to go ahead and calculate 8 divided by 11, set that equal. Then we're going to go ahead and press trigonometry, second, cosine, and that's going to give me 43.3. Perfect. X equals 43.3. And we're done with this problem. All right, so pause the video here if you need to spend more time on figuring out how to get 43.3. Or if you just need some time to write this down. And then what I'd like you to do now is you're going to go ahead and practice the other 4 examples, and I'm going to come back with the answers here in a moment.